My people, my name is Nkechi, and for 22 years, I thought my life was just unlucky. I did not know it had already been sold. Sold for something so small, it still vexes me anytime I remember it. 1 cow, 3 goats, and a promise of yams every harvest for 5 years. That was my price. And the cow? The cow was even limping. My mother swears the cow could not walk fast, let alone run. So all these years, I have been feeling small because of a cow that could not even outrun a chicken. Sit down well, because if I rush this one, you will not understand why I did the things I did. My village is called Amaeze. It sits quietly between 2 rivers, in the kind of place where your business is known before you even finish doing it. Growing up, I believed I was cursed. The older women in the village used to look at me and shake their heads. Nkechi, God will do it for you. Every wedding I attended as a guest, never as the bride, Mama Ijeoma would look at me like I was soup that refused to boil. I was hardworking, I was not ugly, but no serious man ever came to ask for my hand. I thought God was simply busy with other people's files. I was 20 years old when Obina first saw me. He was a mathematics teacher from the next 2 towns over, and he had only come to Amaeze to check on his sick grandmother. That old woman lived just 3 houses from ours, and she used to complain loudly to anybody who would listen that her grandson refused to marry, refused to give her great-grandchildren before she joined her ancestors. We met at the well. I had gone to fetch water for my mother, and as usual, I was struggling with my bucket like it was fighting me back. I heard footsteps behind me, and a voice said, "Please, let me help you before you drown yourself here on a simple Tuesday." I turned around, ready to insult whoever thought that was funny, and there he was, tall, a small bit too thin for his height, wearing a shirt somebody had ironed with plenty love but no skill, because one sleeve was creased the wrong way completely. "I do not need help," I told him. That was a lie, because just as I said it, the bucket tipped and water soaked both my wrapper and his trousers. He looked down at his wet trousers. He looked back up at me, and with a straight face, he said, "Well, now we match." I laughed before I could stop myself, and it was an ugly laugh, the type that comes from your nose. I was ashamed, but he looked so happy, like he had won a prize. He stayed in the village 3 weeks that time, taking care of his grandmother between her long naps and her coughing, and somehow, every single day, his legs found their way to that same well at the same hour I was fetching water. I began to suspect that man did not love his grandmother that much. He loved timing his visits to meet my bucket. One afternoon, he brought roasted corn wrapped inside old newspaper and offered me half. "A bribe," he confessed. "I hear village girls do not trust city men easily, so I have come prepared." With corn? He only had corn money that day. "Ask me again after my next salary. I will bribe you properly with meat." I told him that was the worst bribe I had ever received in my life, and also the only one, and also I would be accepting it. Thank you very much. We sat by that well, eating corn like 2 children hiding from their mothers, and for the first time in my whole life, I felt something other than unlucky. By the time he left, he had already gone to my father and asked for permission to court me properly. My father's reaction confused me before it frightened me. He went very still, the way a man goes still after somebody has struck him somewhere soft, somewhere hidden. He told Obina he would think about it, and then for 11 whole days, he said nothing to me at all. 11 days of him avoiding my eyes at the dinner mat. 11 days of my mother's hands shaking small whenever she passed me my food. My younger brother, Ikenna, even whispered to me one night, "Sister, why is Papa looking at you like you owe him money?" I did not know yet just how right that small boy was. On the 11th night, my mother finally broke.
She came to my mat past midnight, sat beside me in the darkness, and told me a truth she had been carrying since before I could even remember my own name properly. When I was 2 years old, my father borrowed heavily from a powerful man called Chief Mbadiwe to save our farmland during a terrible drought that killed half the crops in the village. That debt grew and grew, faster than my father could ever repay, the way debt to powerful men always seems to grow quietly in the dark while the borrower is busy sleeping. Eventually, Chief Mbadiwe offered a solution. He had a son, sickly, strange, a boy no family in 3 villages wanted to give their daughter to. If my father promised me to that son, once I came of age, the debt would be considered fully settled, finished, done. My father, terrified of losing the only land feeding his whole family, agreed. He did not ask anybody else. He did not even ask me. He did not even wait to see what kind of woman his tiny baby daughter would grow up to become.
That is the real reason no suitor was ever allowed near me all those years. My father had been quietly chasing away every interested family, protecting a secret arrangement he was too ashamed to even speak about. I was never unlucky, my people. I was already spoken for. Nobody simply thought to inform the person being spoken about. Meanwhile, Mama Ijeoma had been insulting my chances at every single wedding for absolutely nothing. I confronted my father the next morning before the cocks had even finished their crowing. I did not shout, though everything inside me wanted to. I only asked him, plain as simple, "How long have you known you would give me to a man I have never once met in my life?" He could not look at me. He stared at the floor like the answer was written somewhere in the dust. "Since you are 2 years old," he finally admitted. "That debt would have buried this whole family in Kechi. I did what a father does." That same week, I went to Chief Mbadiwe's compound, uninvited, and asked to meet this son I had apparently been promised to my whole entire life. His name was Chidebe, and when I finally saw him, sitting alone under a mango tree at the edge of the compound, I understood immediately why no family wanted him. Not because he was cruel, not because he was frightening, but because he was almost completely withdrawn from the world, speaking only in short, flat sentences, flinching at any sudden sound, any unfamiliar face that came too close. Later, I learned he had suffered a very severe fever as a small child, one that changed his mind forever. Gentler than most men, yes, but locked somewhere far away from ordinary conversation. He was not dangerous, my people. He was simply someone the world had already given up trying to understand. And his own father had spent years quietly forcing other families into promising him a wife, so that somebody, anybody, would be obligated to stay by his side forever. Looking at Chidebe that afternoon, I felt something complicated. Not romantic love, never that, but a strange aching pity, because I recognized in him another person who had been traded away without a single voice in the matter, exactly like me. He offered me half of a groundnut he was eating without even looking at me directly, and in that one small gesture, I understood he was, in his own quiet way, kinder than all the men who had built this whole arrangement around him. I told Obina everything the moment he returned to the village the following month. I expected him to withdraw his courtship quietly, to decide a woman carrying this much history was too much trouble. Instead, he sat with me by the river for a long time, turning a smooth stone over and over in his palm, saying nothing, until finally he spoke. "So, let me understand well," he said. "Your father sold you for 1 limping cow, 3 goats and some yams, and you think I, Obina, mathematics teacher, corn briber, owner of exactly 1 badly ironed shirt, will now run away because the arithmetic is complicated?" He shook his head slowly. "Nkechi, I solve harder problems than this before I even take my breakfast." I laughed, then I cried small, and he allowed me to do both without saying one foolish thing, which, my people, is rarer in a man than anybody admits. "I am not interested in a debt," he said finally. "I am interested in you. but I will not ask you to simply abandon a man who has already been abandoned by everybody else his whole life, if that weight is sitting on your conscience. Whatever we decide it together, honestly, not by running away from what is difficult. That honesty is what made me trust him completely, more than any sweet talk or love poem ever could have. Together, we went back to Chief Mbadiwe, not to beg, but to offer something neither my father nor his had ever considered. Obina, using his teaching salary and some careful savings, plus, he later confessed, a small loan from a fellow teacher who still teases him about it to this day, offered to pay the remaining balance of my father's old debt directly, not as a bribe, as a clean, documented settlement between men, witnessed openly by the village elders, so nobody could later claim the arrangement had never truly ended. In exchange, Chief Mbadiwe would release any claim on me, and separately, we would help arrange proper caretaking support for Chidebe through the church mission clinic 2 towns over, something his own father had never once bothered to seek for him in all those years. Chief Mbadiwe was not, in the end, a wicked man, only a frightened one, who had spent years trying to secure his son's future through the only method he understood: obligation. When he finally understood there was a real path to proper, sustained care for Chidebe, one that did not depend on trapping a reluctant bride inside his compound forever, he wept openly in front of all the elders, something the whole village still talks about in low voices with something close to wonder. One elder even swore he had never seen a grown chief cry harder than he laughed at last year's wrestling festival. And my people, that comparison traveled around Amaise faster than the actual news itself. My father did not attend that meeting. Shame kept him at home, sitting alone under our own mango tree. But when I returned that evening and told him it was finally settled, that I was free and nobody's future had been sacrificed to purchase mine, he broke down in a way I had never once seen him before. "I am sorry," he said, his voice cracking apart completely. "I sold you before I even knew who you would become." I forgave him, not all at once. Small, the way real forgiveness actually happens, over many quiet weeks. Ikenna, less diplomatic than me, told him plainly, "Papa, next time you want to sell somebody, sell the goat that keeps eating my slippers, not your daughter." Now, let me tell you about the wedding, because this one, my people, was something else entirely.
Obina and I married the following dry season, right there under that same mango tree where Chidebe used to sit alone. Obina arrived wearing a brand new shirt, properly ironed this time, by an actual tailor, and he made sure to announce to everybody within hearing distance that the crease was intentional and very fashionable, until I reminded the whole compound loudly that I personally watched that same tailor fix his mistake not once but twice. The whole crowd laughed so hard one of the drummers missed his beat. Mama Ijeoma, the same woman who had been shaking her head for my chances for 20 solid years, was seen dancing so hard at the reception that she knocked over an entire basin of jollof rice. Full basin, red oil everywhere. To this day, nobody in Amaise lets that woman forget it. Every time she opens her mouth to gossip about somebody else's daughter, someone in the market will simply say, "Is this the same person that killed a whole basin of jollof?" And she will hiss and walk away vexed. Chidebe himself was one of our guests that day, sitting quietly near the back, beside the mission nurse who had become his regular caretaker. And for the first time in my whole life, I saw something close to peace settle over his face as the drums played. He did not dance, my people, but his foot tapped small in time with the music, and his nurse told me afterward she had never once seen him do that before in his life. My people, here is what I carry from all of this, and I want you to carry it too. Sometimes the person being traded and the person doing the trading are both trapped inside the very same fear. They are simply standing on opposite sides of it. My freedom did not come to me through running into the night like the old stories tell you. It came through sitting down at the table my own father was too ashamed to sit at and insisting that everybody's dignity, mine, Chidebe's, even my own father's, be accounted for honestly, together, in the daylight where everybody could see. And somewhere in the middle of all that heavy seriousness, a city man with one badly ironed shirt bribed me with roasted corn by a village well, and I have been laughing, my people, ever since. I am Nkechi. I was sold before I could even walk, but in the end, I was the one who settled that debt on my own terms with a husband who solves harder problems before breakfast and a limping cow's memory that still makes my mother laugh at every family gathering, even now.
Did you enjoy my story? Please like, share, and subscribe for more. Tell me, do you think Nkechi was right to include Chidebe's care in her own freedom, or should she have simply walked away and never looked back?